and welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. This is episode 254 for your record book, and you can hear how great my voice is, but it's better than it has been for about the last 2 weeks. But my name's Aaron, and with me, as always, the other members of the Who Dat Jedi Council, Dave and Fredo. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
Happy post Mardi Gras.
We survived.
We did. And Dave went to the Great White North. Almost the Great White North. He went to Kansas.
The weather was actually nice. Like
the Great White Middle
weather. Yeah, we had 60-degree weather all week. It was the weirdest thing.
Well, it was crazy. Just a couple of days ago, it was like dang near 80 in Nebraska, and then the next day they had 6 inches of snow. So, I mean, that's the kind of weather that just makes you mad when you live in the Midwest. Just so you know, it just makes you mad. So Dave's nodding. You can't see, but he, being from Kansas, he knows. Yeah, so it's been a tiring couple of weeks, I think, for everybody for many different reasons, but here we're back to normal. To talk about some Star Wars stuff. I do have to tell you guys, though, I finally saw Superman. So my wife and I watched Superman, I think on, was Valentine's Day or my birthday, one of the two, I can't remember, but we finally watched it. And it was a really good movie. I really, I know Dave, you had talked about it, and I had that in the back of my head, just about being a good person. It was kind of the overall theme of it. The theme that I got also is that blood don't make family, and just because you're related to jackals doesn't mean that you're destined to be a jackal. It's I thought that's a very powerful thing. Especially, adoptive families, things like that. I think that's something that was always often missed in Superman movies. I thought it was an interesting, spoiler alert, everybody, but I thought it was an interesting take on his Kryptonian parents being seemingly being awful people. So at least that's what we're led to believe. I don't know. Do you think do you think we actually know what the rest of the message said, or do you think that was Lex Luthor being Lex Luthor?
I think that was one of the more interesting aspects of the movie before Dave comes in, is that it was interesting when they announced Nicholas Hoult as Luthor. Everybody went, "Really, him? Are you sure?" He nailed that character in a way I don't think anybody has on TV, because Gene Hackman and later Kevin Spacey kind of played him as a kind of used car salesman more than necessarily the most brilliant genius guy in the planet. Uh, and they didn't have a Luthor for the Henry Cavill movies, you know. And then I think the closest approximation of that is maybe Smallville, but I love this one. This one just, you can totally tell that this has nothing to do with all the stuff that he's talking about. This is personal for him about how much he dislikes Superman.
Well, they had a, they
Okay.
had a, they had a Luthor for the Cavill movies. That was in Batman versus Superman.
Oh, that's right. See,
Yeah.
see how bad of of a memory I have? Because geez, that did not feel like Lex Luthor. That was Mark Zuckerberg by way of Jesse Eisenberg pretending to be Lex Luthor. Jeez, I forgot about him.
But I will say, Fredo, if you were in my class, I would have said, thank you for participating, but you didn't answer my question. Do you think we actually got the actual second half of that message, or do you think it was Lex Luthor being Lex Luthor?
I think James Gunn usually has another card up his sleeve, so he usually maps those sorts of things out in advance, and then he knows the full answer, and he doesn't know the full answer. That's usually how he approaches these sorts of riddles. So that's my long-winded way of saying I don't think we've heard the entire message in full context yet. I think Clark had a version of it, a very, very short version, a snippet of it. Lex unlocked more of it to paint them in as negative a light as possible. And I think there's probably even more that we haven't heard as an audience.
And in watching a breakdown of it, I heard that in because my whole thing about when this movie was the first trailer and you saw crypto, I said if anything happens to crypto, I am going to lose it. And apparently, in test screenings, there was when they invaded the Fortress of Solitude, there was a scene where not Bizarro, what was his name? Anyway, the mean dude, he actually punches crypto, and said screening audiences hated that, and so they took that out of the movie. So, but
It's a fine line between how much, like, oh my gosh, he's got crypto trapped in this little bubble where he's got a machine plugged into his brain. He's tired himself chasing a digital squirrel, which, that says a lot about where AI is going. Um, that's acceptable. Physically punching the dog, not
yeah,
acceptable.
right.
So you have to know the lines and stay on the right side.
So, but no, long story short, like I said, it was very good movie. Yeah, we dug it. So,
I think being nice is punk rock. So yeah,
yeah.
at this stage of things.
And by the way, this was the first time I've ever heard of hypno glasses, and that that actually made me feel better about the whole Clark Kent thing more than because I've always been of the really you comb your hair different and put on glasses and nobody knows you're Superman. Get out of here. But when you think about it, never heard of that tech, and I was like, that's brilliant. So yeah,
That leans into the whole comic book weirdness. I think talked about this when we were at the parade route talking about this movie. James Gunn loves comic books, and Superman, given its nearly 100-year run, is full of silly, wacky comic book stuff. And Gunn's more than comfortable showing you that, taking you there, showing you the silliness of it all. And whereas some of the directors and creators might have been reticent, he doesn't have a problem with that. He's just okay. There's a character who's had some silly stuff out there, kids, and here you go, enjoy.
so the main thing we're going to talk about tonight, because there's a bigger thing that happened, and that was we actually got a trailer for the Mandalorian and Grogu. I guess that is going to be the name of this movie. So I'm going to start here. Cue the music from Frozen. I'm going to let it go. From here on out, I guess I won't complain about it, except for in hushed tones. But that's what it's going to be. So I guess that's what it's going to be. So, but we're going to talk about that, kind of our initial thoughts. I'm going to play a little bit of a game with you guys. It's not too intense. I'm sneaking up on you, but it's going to be fine. But just some things that are going through my brain as watching through the trailer. But first, first of all, Dave, I mean, like I said, you went to Kansas. Did you get to experience any of Carnival, or did you guys do any parades?
Not really. We did Crew de Vue when it was, really cold. We went and we did that. And then, I don't know, the kids weren't really feeling it. And we were kind of stressed about the trip and everything. So I didn't really get to go.
Well, Fredo, I know you did Carnival because we were side by side most of the time. So we won't ask you about Box of Wine. We'll just move past that. You've put that on social media enough. But you had a mission for your nephew.
But yeah, so my one nephew lives in Houston, doesn't get to come out to Mardi Gras because the calendar rarely aligns. And so in years past, I usually make a box of throws, stuff, light up throws, maybe a coconut, something decorated, some cute. Because he's 13 now, he's like, well, I don't really want that stuff. Plus, I have plenty. I want t-shirts. Last year, I sent him a couple of t-shirts and a couple of pairs of socks that I caught. He wanted t-shirts and socks. So that was my mission: t-shirts and socks, t-shirts and socks. That was the one thing I begged for on the route. And Got lucky, and as long as I got a pair of socks and a t-shirt from as many crews as I could, cool. That's all I wanted. And the grand tally came in, and I even had a friend who was able to give me one from Endymion, which I didn't go to, and we caught a t-shirt at the Pelicans game. I caught a t-shirt at the Pelicans game, so that's going on the pile. So the grand total is 9 t-shirts and 15 pairs of socks. It's actually more than I expected, and I can't even fit them all in the box I had set aside for it. So I gotta go. I'm gonna need a bigger vessel to ship all this stuff out to him. It's the kind of thing that you kind of go, okay, you tend to hope, but then you're like, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. And again, I tell everybody, you go out to the parade, don't go out with any expectations. Just go out there looking to have fun, and sometimes you'll be rewarded. That happened this year, so I can't be mad. It was a good Mardi Gras, by the way. It was a good carnival all around, the carnival season. I was just done talking to Ryan about it. It was really fun.
That was perfect weather. The thing that gets me, I realize that my breaking point is when I don't have an escape route. It's like on Bacchus is like that whole day. It was great because I mean, the crowd was manageable, and then when Bacchus rolled around, that's when all the people show up late or something, and then they push up to where you've been all day long. And I know I don't own the plot of land that I was standing on, but I mean, when you start getting pushed around and you have no place to go, I just had to go sit up in our friend Lizzie's apartment for a while, and then watch the rest of the parade from a half a block away. It was
Yeah,
that's when I start breaking down. But
particularly that day. And I always mentioned that Bacchus Sunday tends to be almost like the culmination of the weekend. By the time that parade rolls around, you've been out Thursday, you've been out Friday, you've been out Saturday, you've been out all day Sunday. Sunday's a whole event day. And by the time you get to that, your uh, emotional and mental and spiritual batteries are kind of drained. And you haven't had a good meal in a while, so you're more susceptible to all that stuff at that point.
so let's
I've
do.
heard a lot of people talk about muses and how crowded that was and how those crowds misbehave. And now it's the new Endymion. And
So,
That's
uh,
that's
so
not that's not that's not a cool moniker to have.
no.
well, two things I've no. I saw somebody. A lot of people indicate that they were actually kinder and nicer and felt better at Endymion this year than they have in years past. Because again, the volume of people and people being all day on the side of the street drinking will lead to a lot of bad behavior. Let's just be fair there. With Muses, it's just the feral nature of people looking for the shoe, which, again, if you show up looking for that, you're going to come away disappointed. But if you don't show up looking for that, you're going to have fun. Actually, I was telling this to Ryan. I was like, I think with Muses, I've realized it all depends on where you're at, people around you. And the hard part is, whereas in years past, you're able to say, oh, if you catch this parade at this side of the street or before this street, you're in a good area. Or if you catch it this, oh, you're bad. You can't really say that. I mean, I got out there for Muses early. There was still space available to grab, and I grabbed it. And Aaron Britt turned up, Lizzie turned up, a couple of other friends turned up. So and we had to remember the mom that was looking for the lightsaber, Aaron,
Yeah, yeah.
for a little boy. Like we had good vibe all around, so the night was fun. If you're a block and a half further from us and you're just getting drunk, belligerent moms and girls looking for fighting everybody for a shoe, yeah, your night's not gonna be as fun. So I think that's the hard part. I almost wanted to go like there was a year where Bacchus rode and they were giving away bikes, and what they did is they would throw you like something with the QR code. And if you caught it, hey, you caught a bike from us. Reply back to this email with your code and we'll get you your bike out on the Monday after, the Tuesday after. I almost wish they did that now for the shoes because it gets really militant out there for some people. I mean, I tell people that's the last parade I got pushed down to the ground. That's the last parade I got punched at was Muses. And I love Muses. Their floats are great. The bands are fun. They're friendly. They try to be. It's not on the crew. It's more the expectations of the crowd, and that's impossible to deal with.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you deal with supply and demand,
Yeah.
it becomes 1983 Cabbage Patch Kids, all over again. So
Hmm.
And that's not why I'm there. I could give a rat's butt if I get a shoe. So
I've caught enough.
I caught one this year.
Caught enough.
I've caught one. I caught one this year. I didn't catch one last year. I caught one the year before that. Again, it's you cannot. And I tell everybody, you cannot show up there out there.
you know
Oh my
what?
God! I need to. If I don't get this, my night's ruined. No, go looking for fun.
Yeah, I mean,
Hang out with your friends. Have
we
fun.
didn't come here to listen about Mardi Gras, but I will say, I mean, to me, my first Mardi Gras, Britt and I both got a coconut, and I really don't feel like I need to get a coconut ever again. It, you
I
know,
know.
oh, good for you. You're also like I'm 5'9" and you're like what 6'3". I mean, so go away.
No,
Um,
no, 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 no. But because I didn't catch. See, that's the thing. I didn't catch them because I'm 6'3". I'm just hanging out. I don't. Again, there was one thing I did ask this year when I was at Zulu. I know somebody was holding a flask. And I was like, hey, can I have that flask? I told the teacher, so I said, hey, he threw it at me. Other than that, I don't ask for anything. I just go, hey, you throw me a pair of beads, cool. You throw me a pair of socks, I'm happy. You throw me nothing, hope you had a good time. Again, I don't go out there for the throws, I go there a good time. Now, have
So
have I am I luckier because my reach is longer? In some instances, but then
yeah,
I'm not one of those people who plays. I don't go out there playing center
yeah, no
field like
kidding,
Jim
right?
Edmonds. I don't do that.
I have one thing with Mardi Gras, right? Like, and it's this frustration with people who tell you how to celebrate it, and like that feels like the absolute opposite of what Mardi Gras is about. Um, it's like, oh, you can't have king cake from this place, or you got to leave the knife in the box, or I got all these rules. You can't put a ladder on the route, or you can put a ladder on the route, and everybody's just fighting over these little insignificant details that don't really matter.
Well,
Ultimately, you're supposed to just have a good
and
time.
I'm going to pile on that because it's like what Fredo was talking about one of the nights. A couple times we saw exactly what I think Mardi Gras is supposed to be about. One is our group. We look for the little kids, and anytime we get a stuffy, it's like we're handing it off to the little kid. There was a mom who's like 9-year-old or whatever, just wanted a lightsaber. That's all they wanted, and our crew was always up there hollering for a lightsaber. We got a lightsaber for the kid, and the lady just hugged my wife for about
Mhm.
2 minutes because she got to go. She then got to go home, but then also it's like my wife picking up little kids who she doesn't know. I mean, that sounds bad, right? But it's little kids of the people next to us, hoisting them up on her shoulders so that they can get a throw. Just being Auntie Brit. It's that that's what this is about. It's community. It's about family. It's about yeah. So hang
It
around
was
us, and
funny.
you'll get that vibe. So
Yeah, it was funny for Sulu because I got Sulu at St. Charles and Canal, and one of the writers throws me this 2 foot big squishmallow labubu. And I'm like, I'm not carrying
that's
this
gonna be the
for
name of
for
my
the next.
band. That's gonna be the name
Yeah,
of
yeah.
my band, Squishmallow
Squishmallow
Labubu.
labubu. Yeah. Well, it's a squishmallow because it's squishy and they have the labubu face. And I'm just like, uh, not for me. And I know when it's not for. I look around, look around. I see a dad. He's got his little girl on his shoulder, on his arms. I go like, and I don't know this guy. I go, Dad, would you like this? And I stretch it out, and the little girl turns before Dad turns, and she just grabs it. It's like holding onto the life. She's like, this right now. I will cut it here. So it's like, you know what? That's meant for her. That's meant. And again, that's fun of this. It's not about oh my god how much you can get or what you can get. No, it's
Yeah.
having that experience, that moment, that connection with people. That mom and kid when they left, we're laughing because the kid left with two lightsabers. We're like, his night was made. Their night was made. That's what you want.
So kids, first timers, and people who are disabled or elderly. They can't move around so well, right? That's the three, right? Like you just take care of those people, your neighbors. Take care of them.
Yeah.
Just do that. Like and whenever people lose sight of that, I'm like, you're doing it wrong. Even
Well,
though I just said you can't do it wrong, that maybe that's the one rule is like just take care of your neighbors.
dress warm next year because it's going to be early.
Yeah.
Well, let's do some Star Wars trivia and let's get into this podcast here. Thank you for letting us ramble about that, but it's a special time of the year. All right, all right, Dave, you get the first one. What's the only item that keeps Chewbacca from appearing naked? What's the only item that keeps Chewbacca from appearing naked?
A bandolier.
It is a bandolier, yes. I saw that and I was like, oh, that's good. That's one I'm going to read.
I almost said lederhosen just for fun, but no.
The Wookiee has no pants.
Fredo, to you. How many times is Darth Maul able to catch Obi-Wan off guard with a kick during their duel? How many times is Darth Maul able to catch Obi-Wan off guard with a kick during their duel? This is a bad question, man.
I'm going to say 2 times.
What does your gut want you to say?
My gut wants me to say 2 times. The first time's when all 3 of them are up above, and he kind of slide kicks him when he pins his lightsaber down, knocks him off that ledge. And the second one's when they're just the 2 of them, and Obi-Wan comes up, and then he kicks him back and into a backflip. Those are 2 times I can remember.
The answer is 3.
Okay, so I'm trying.
So we're gonna have to go. We're gonna have to go back and watch Phantom Menace and find out.
Those are the 2 really obvious ones. Yeah.
Yeah, because doesn't it kick him off the ledge into the final moments. He force pushes him off.
He must kick him twice in that final stretch, right? He must.
He must. But that's what I'm trying to think.
Well, I know there's one where he kicks him because it's a really bad effect. It's a really bad visual effect because he does the kick and then they like slide the Maul figure into. Anyway. Well, to me, who confidently declares, "I will be Chancellor"? Who confidently declares, "I will be Chancellor"? Jar Jar Binks. No, I mean it's Palpatine. Senator Palpatine it is. All right. I can't remember. Before we get to the news, in our last episode, did we talk about the Super Bowl spot?
I think we might have mentioned it, but it was. I think
It
more
would not have
mentioned
been.
everybody's.
It would not have been a mention, would it? Did we? Okay. We'll save that. And we'll bleed it into the trailer in case we're doubling up on ourselves. But anyway, so we'll toss it to the news here. Fredo, over to you.
All right, let's be quick about this. So, because a lot of this stuff, I mean, it's kind of known, although some interesting quotes. First things first, there was obviously, if you on the last episode, we kind of discussed some of the upcoming expected changes at Disney's leadership. That has come to pass. Well, there was an interview that Variety did with Steven Soderbergh where he felt finally able to start talking about the Hunt for Ben Solo movie that didn't happen. Well, no, it's not corrected. There's an interview with BK Mag. So he said, quote, "It was no surprise to read Kathleen Kennedy's exit interview and hear her frustration about Disney axing the Hunt for Ben Solo." So his quote goes, "We were all frustrated. You know, that was 2.5 years of free work for me and Adam and writer Rebecca Blunt. When Adam and I discussed him talking about it publicly, I said, look, do not editorialize it or speculate about the why. Just say what happened, because all we know is what happened. The stated reason was, we don't think Ben Solo could be alive. And that was all we were told. So there's nothing to do about it, except move on." He continues, "I kind of made the movie in my head, just felt bad that nobody else was going to get to see it. I thought the conversation was strictly going to be a practical one. Where they go, what is this going to cost? And I had a really good answer for all that. But it never even got to that point. It's insane. We're all very disappointed."
I mean, I don't know what else to say there. except sounded like um, Lucasfilm was just kind of working in a vacuum almost.
Well, that's where it gets interesting because I mean, Adam Driver, remember, he did say they did go to Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm understood it. They enjoyed it. They took it to Bob Iger and the leadership at Disney, and it was Disney's leadership that said, "No, Ben Solo's
So
dead."
the reason why this is now a story again is that Josh D'Amaro, who is now the CEO, he characterizes himself as a risk taker. And so now people are going, oh, okay, if you're a risk taker, then here's a movie for you.
And,
That's a big, that would be, you know, prove your point type of thing. So I think they're seeing light in the doorway. But I don't know. So it's, but it is interesting. It just sounds, it just, to me, it leads to, and I'll toss it to Dave here, it just again leads to that dysfunctionality between Disney and Lucasfilm. And like I said, I think Lucasfilm was just operating like this is the way we do things, and then we'll bring the movie and it's going to go over like gangbusters. And then all of a sudden it was like, wah, wah, wah. But yeah, it just sounded like a lot of assumptions were being made.
I for one hope the movie gets made, so I like that it's not going away. The story's not going away, and they keep talking about it, and they keep getting asked about it. And dude, and he's like, I spent 2.5 years of my life like prepping for this movie, writing it, and crafting the story, and getting all our ducks in a row. And
you
he's
don't
like, I have a
do that
movie
unless you have a pretty dang good idea that you're going to get a check. Sorry to step on you there, but
well, and that's what Adam Driver had always said prior to that point, and they mentioned that in the article, which is that he wouldn't have. He's like, I always liked the character, but I wouldn't have come back unless you had a solid director and a good story. And so those things were in place. I mean, that's the assumption I'm going off of here. And you can't make assumptions. I know all of that, but I have a feeling Adam is true to his word in that he meant what he said, and he wouldn't have come back if he didn't feel good about the story. And they asked Daisy Ridley about it, and she said that this is all very positive. She's like, I really like this because the fans are like pointed in a positive direction, kind of a pointed remark at the negativity that these actors sometimes have to deal with. But she is very much in favor of the movement, as it were, for this movie. And she said that for her personally, she was surprised when she saw that Adam was attached to it because, oh wow, that made it real.
So some other interesting kind of speculation that I've been hearing in some of the other podcasts. I mean, right now you've got, is it Simon Kinberg writing some mysterious trilogy? Yeah. And the Daisy Ridley the Daisy Ridley movie is on hold. And the Adam Driver one was also there was talks about how those could be connected. Would not be surprised if your movie ends up getting made, Dave, as part of this trilogy that is going to be part of the new Jedi, the Daisy Ridley New Jedi Order type of a thing. 'Tis possible.
Well, and then again, we know that, I mean, in the history of Star Wars, nothing starts out the way it comes out on the screen. Like, even the original trilogy was not by design what we know. The original Star Wars: A New Hope was not the starting point of that story, but that's the one they thought we can get this made, and we'll figure out everything else down the line, so to speak. So I could totally see that. I could totally see where they think, okay, maybe we bring in Daisy Ridley's New Jedi Order movie and blend it, and include this Hunt for Ben Solo movie, because again, it's a continuation of these characters. And what's interesting is now you get away from, it's been now what, 7 years from Rise of Skywalker. So the generation that grew up with the sequel trilogy is now entering that point where the prequel generation was when Clone Wars came along for them. So this could be very much their version of, not quite like for like Clone Wars, but the thing that allows them to kind of reframe the sequel trilogy in a new way with new material that expands upon it. So again, if you're Disney, you got people like Steven Soderbergh spending 2.5 years co-writing and thinking of a movie that you can make on a particular budget that's gonna, hit. Particularly when you're having a hard time getting movies off the ground, why the heck say no when using the "well, he's dead" excuse feels very flimsy for a studio that loves making. It's about to put out Toy Story 4, Toy Story 5.
All right, we're not going to get into this, but the fact of the matter was, I'm sorry. I will. I can see both sides of this argument. That it's like, on one part of it, it's like you're a creative, listen to the pitch and try to see the vision for the story. But on the other hand, you're starting from your starting blocks are with a character who is dead. And in Star Wars, yes, okay, I know in some books and in some comic books they've had characters come back from the netherworld, but I mean, it is one of those things like that's not a strong place to start from. So, like I said, I can see both sides. That to me, that's, I mean, who like I said, hey,
I think I would counter with it's better that the character is dead than the actor.
well, yeah.
I
All I
mean,
will say
you're in
is,
a better position to get it made.
So
all,
anyway,
all I'll say is, there are many mysteries in the Force, and we do not know the full breadth of them. So who knows? Anyway, moving right quick along to, so a couple of weeks back, actually before Mardi Gras, we got the announcement of Star Wars Galactic Racer, which okay, Dave, you played Star Wars Racer, did you not, for the N64?
I
And I
played it
think
on my
Aaron, and I
Switch.
think Aaron,
Yeah.
Aaron's
and I
played.
think you,
I played it on
and
the
you
64 as well, but I played it on my Switch, and it was like,
right.
talk
Yeah,
about
it's
sad trombone. I remember it was a lot. It
yeah,
was a lot cooler on the PlayStation that my brother-in-law had than on the
yeah.
Switch.
It
Anyway,
it did not age well. It did not age well. Well, you get a new game coming up. So during Sony State of Play broadcast, they showed an exclusive look at Galactic Racer. So uh, it shows you like some various different surfaces, like the volcanic surface of Sentinel-1. You get to race through Jakku. You get to race through lush jungle of Lantana. So, and you get to see all sorts of different characters like Sebulba, and more importantly, Ben Quadinaros is in there. And so they do announce that it's coming later this year for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and for the PC. So if you've been hunkering for more racing in Star Wars, here it comes.
anytime you say Ben Quadinaros, I just start singing Guantanamera. So that's
Sorry, wrong song.
Ben
But yeah,
Quadinaros.
yeah, exactly.
This game absolutely looks like, I mean, is made for me. Um, that it looks like you don't have to. There's no elaborate story that you're gonna have to be, totally dedicate your life to. It's just it's Mario Kart and Star Wars is what it looks like, and it's like I'm here for it. And if I probably will have to change. Have to get a Switch 2 probably to be able to play it, and I guess I'll figure out how to make that happen. So it's right down. It's right up my alley. It looks really cool.
It looks cool. That's all I got. It looks cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things like you're right. There's sometimes some games like the Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order games where you play for the story and you're really committed and you're engaged on what's telling you what's happening. Sometimes you just want a game you can just fire up and just enjoy without any worry or concern about plot or whatever. You just want to go fast, and this seems like it'll fit that need. And again, I'm always surprised that they don't put out more of these games because This is like easy money to just put out and give to the kids and the grown-ups.
Fredo, I have to tell you, I had Phantom Menace playing in the background while we were doing this, just to confirm, are there three
Mhm.
kicks? And
There are.
yes, there are. Maul kicks him prior to the two you mentioned as they're transitioning out of the hangar onto the
Oh, that's
walkways.
right. Yes, that is right. Darn, I forgot about that one. It's he kicks him and he sends him flying back, and then he
Because
steps into the room and he's
he's
fighting Qui-Gon. And
he's fighting two people at once. He's using everything he's got.
he's got to separate them to create some space for him to fight. Wow. Okay.
Yep.
See, thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Last bit of news, and this one's not controversial, but interesting. Obviously, uh, I guess because of the where we're in, the Hollywood Reporter had an interview with none other than Tony Gilroy. Start talking to him about Andor and everything that's happening around the world. So here's some of the more interesting quotes that Tony Gilroy said, because everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe your Emmy-winning series is feeling so clairvoyant for what's going on in America." Here's his answer. Quote, "You get out your Fascism for Dummies book for the 15 things you do, and we tried to include as many of them as we could in the most artful way possible. How were we supposed to know that this clown car in Washington was going to basically use the same book that we used? So I don't think it's prescience so much as the sad familiarity of fascism." End quote.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is that history repeats itself. So, yeah. But
That's right. There's a playbook at this point. Is fascism for dummies? It's just it's there. It's in black and white. And they circulate it amongst themselves. They're like, hey, have you read this? Have you really read it?
well, and that's
You
the
can
thing.
take some stuff from this.
I know a lot of people have been. It it does make you want. I haven't been able to have this conversation with anybody, but it's like, okay, so when you watched Andor, did you root for the Empire? That's that. I mean,
No.
but that's. I mean, you wonder. The same. I'm sorry to get
No.
all political here tonight, but we everybody knows where we stand. But it's like, I mean, did you root for the Empire? Yeah, I have stormtrooper armor because it looks dope. It looks cool, But I wasn't rooting for fascism. But yeah, I don't know. So Tony Gilroy also said, and there's been people have been trying to put like Dave Filoni like dissing Andor and stuff like that in, and Tony Gilroy is like, no, there's not been nothing but love from them. So yeah, so that was I thought kind of interesting.
Said, obviously, Star Wars nerds being Star Wars nerds can't help but say, if this is great, then everything else must be awful. If Andor's the greatest thing ever, and you've heard a lot of it, people saying, well, after Andor, I don't know if I really can watch The Mandalorian and Grogu and connect with it. It's like, if you only see it through this particular prism, well, yeah, nothing else fits that prism. The beauty of Star Wars is that I've said this many times, you can have Andor and Mandalorian and Grogu and Skeleton Crew and Diablo. You can have all these various stories playing across the same sandbox, and every one of them, as long as they connect with their audience, works. So, but it's crazy that so many people still go, "Oh my gosh, Dave Filoni didn't like Andor. He's more interested in Ahsoka." And it's like Dave Filoni's interested in Star Wars, and particularly even more now. He just wants good Star Wars stories. So you give him one, he's happy.
By the way, one little bit of news again before we move on to the trailer. Other news. If you're in San Francisco, kids, it was actually on my birthday on February 13th. It opened up at the Presidio where Lucasfilm is in San Francisco. They now have a publicly accessible Lucasfilm store. So when I got to work at Lucasfilm for a day, I got to go into the company store that only Lucasfilm employees got to be in, and now they have one that's that's open, and there's a lot of collectibles, and you can get Skywalker Ranch wine and stuff like that. So if you're in the Presidio, you can go buy Lucasfilm stuff now. So
you're telling me we need a road trip?
well, actually,
Such fun.
I told one of my coworkers today. I said next time in San Francisco, you got to put in enough into the agenda that Aaron can go to the Presidio and go shopping. So yeah, but so that's cool. Let's
I
talk.
briefly want to say
go for
something
it.
about Gilroy though before we completely abandon it, because I think the takeaway here is that he's saying that he was asked really not to discuss the politics in the initial release period because the fragile ego of the folks that are in charge right now, and the kind of heat that Disney would take on as a result of that, and the chilling effect that has on art and on speech. And that's a problem, man. That's a freaking big, that's a big deal. That's a big problem. And we all just kind of like, yeah, well, that's the way it is. And now we got to move forward. And everybody, again, we've all got problems in our lives. And I'm not saying we can take on every fight that there is. We certainly can't. But gosh, that's just depressing, isn't it? I mean, as he takes his swipe, and I love him for it, because they deserve it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just the reality is he couldn't share that opinion early on.
The Hollywood Reporter, he admits that he, as the leader, as the showrunner, as the person guiding the whole production, he had to be cognizant that the show, number one, the show it's its own thing, but that he couldn't speak for everybody in the production team, actors, directors, stage hands, everybody. I said they all share the same point of view. He had to be respectful of the fact that there's a whole team behind him that may not all agree with what he's saying, or even go to the degrees of what he says. So in some ways, he had to kind of rein his own self in while being respectful of everybody else. That being said, yeah, it's interesting that he had to know. Okay, I can't really say the F word for being fascism on public while I'm promoting the show, talking about the fight against fascism, because it might upset somebody. And now that the show's done and it's shelved and it's been, not going to come back, he can speak about that in a more open manner, which unfortunately for me makes me think we're not going to get the continuation story that I wanted with Clea and Mon
You
Mothma
know,
and Val, doing their own rebellion on the side.
but as I was thinking about this, I agree with. I understand what you're saying, Fredo. But as I was thinking about this, reading that, it's like he was writing this in between first term and second term, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and arguably, the first term was better than the second term is so far, 1 year in. I mean, it wasn't a bed of roses, it wasn't unicorns in there, but it was a little bit more sane. So I think Gilroy's answer should have been, "Hey, listen, I wasn't writing this during then, but if you're seeing some connections, then boy, isn't that what does that tell you?
That's essentially what he's saying now.
That's
right?
what he's saying. But at the time, I think he could have said that and saying, "Hey, I wasn't writing this with this in mind. But if you're seeing connections now, it's like, no, I can't see the future, but I do read history, and boy, if you're seeing those connections, then like I said, so I think there's, but yeah, I mean."
The risk-averse Mickey Mouse Corporation.
I mean,
would not.
I will also
wanted to risk that.
Yeah, and I will also say this is that if it is your own business, and I mean you feel free, you have like the shackles are off, and you can take the risk and say what you will. But when you are getting paid by another company, I mean, you. like Fredo said, you put yourself and others at risk of, it's the tough part. I mean, so now that he is out of that contract, yeah, he say whatever the heck he wants. But
Yeah, and it's a hard balance, particularly when you're the writer, creator, showrunner. Because I mean, we talk about it all the time. We want a lot of these actors and actresses and people to be more upfront about their positions, their beliefs, and everything. But at the same time, they don't just exist in a vacuum. They're hired by these massive conglomerates to put on a show to promote something. So it's a fine line. I know respect that it's not difficult, particularly when you're in the moment. Particularly when you're like he says, I wasn't thinking about 2024, 2025,
well, but
2026 when I'm writing this. I'm writing this 4 years ago.
here's the
I
thing
didn't realize this is gonna hit
but
here.
here's the thing that just ticks me off about all of this is like the people who have zero media or literacy at all. Superheroes have always been woke. Whatever you want to say, they have always been woke. Star Wars has always been about anti-fascism. It has always been about, since 1977, it's always been that way. So it's not like Tony Gilroy came up, like found the secret sauce and was like, oh my goodness, it's like, it's always been that way, So, so I don't know why it would be a shock to anybody,
Here we are.
So anyway, so yeah, get off my lawn. Okay.
We're up Aaron's lawn.
Yeah.
Until trailer.
All right. Well, let's talk. We have a Star Wars trailer, guys, and I can't remember. Okay, so I can't remember if we talked about the Super Bowl ad, which, by the way, I think I sent you guys a text. I said I am not watching, and I still haven't watched or listened to any like breakdown or podcast of anybody who even had the slightest negative thing to say about that Super Bowl ad. Because like I saw one that said, WTF, and I was like, nope, not going to watch it. And it's like a YouTube channel that I watch all the time. And it's a couple things drive me nuts. No, we're back on Aaron's lawn here for a second. There's a couple things that have driven me nuts about that. The instant that it came on, first of all, I had no idea what was going on. I was like, what is this? And I remember, like everybody, it was like, is that a tauntaun? It's like, that's a tauntaun. And then, of course, your brain kind of goes, ooh, trailer. And then you realize, because I have media literacy and I don't live under a rock, it's like, oh, this isn't a trailer. It's just a little ad. And I think I told you guys, I thought it was brilliant. It did exactly what it needed to do, to just say, have some fun and say, hey, kids, there's a movie coming out in May. Dun, 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 dun. And I got to see tauntauns. That was really cool. I thought the whole spot was I thought it was awesome. I thought it did exactly what it was supposed to do. And I do agree with Star Wars Underworld, and maybe another one that said it. They said the only thing that would have made it better if they would have been thinking maybe half a block down the road is to say, trailer coming out tomorrow on Good Morning America. No controversy. Because I don't think necessarily we were supposed to get this trailer that we just got, but because of the Super Bowl backlash.
Yeah. It's weird that so many people took such umbrage to it because, particularly, the Super Bowl trailer, before we get to the Super Bowl ad. It's not a trailer, just an ad.
It's because half of Star Wars fans need to get a life, Fredo. That's why. That's why they took umbrage at it. Sorry, I love you all, but I mean, good Lord.
It's
anyway.
ridiculous. That's my point. It's ridiculous. If you've grown up watching the Super Bowl, you know that you're gonna get these silly. Heck, Budweiser came back with a silly commercial with a young baby eagle being raised by a horse, and then, there's that whole imagery. So clearly, that's what they were playing off of for the trailer, which I love. The only mistake really that they did was they should have had a few more kind of playing off other famous, Super Bowl ads.
Except that one cost them $7 million.
Well, can you imagine if You remember the Terry Tate office linebacker ad? Imagine if you had Seb Karras, no, office linebacker. That would have been funny.
But
Yeah, they could have taken the concept a little bit further. I agree with that. I think like people that are really hung up on the style of ad that it was are missing the point because there's precedence here. Uh, I remember when the original trilogy was re-released in theaters, right? And they broke the fourth wall. The announcer immediately tells you you're watching a movie. He's like, if you've only watched the movie on television, you haven't really watched the movie, right? Like, so he's already breaking the fourth wall, right? That's an example. Um, I can tell you we debated the use of the Steve Earle in the teaser for Andor season 2, and again, people were like, stylistically, I don't know about it, but it's like they're being creative. So again, the idea wasn't again give them a proper trailer. The idea was remind them that this movie is coming out. And I agree with you 1,000%, Aaron. Like, did they succeed in that goal? They did. So there you go.
yeah, I mean, so okay, so now let's go further. So we did get a trailer, and we're not going to break it down. Go someplace else to break it down. I think we just want to get some initial thoughts here. And I guess my question to you guys: um, are you more, less? Are you more excited? Are you equally as excited, or are you now a little bit more worried in even the smidgen after seeing this trailer? Honest answers only.
Okay. Um, I'm more excited, but I wasn't at first. When I first saw the trailer, I saw it on my little tiny phone with the volume down really, really low, and it looked fun, but it didn't look like the sort of thing that I need to go see it. Um, I've since watched it again on a much bigger screen with surround sound, with the volume cranked up, and it hit really, really well. And I think like it was a good reminder that this is why Star Wars belongs on the big screen. And this is why we go and this is why we obsess over this and we talk about these things over and over and over and over again. It's like, well, why can't we get a new movie? And it's like, it's because it hits different up there. It just does. And being able to sort of more accurately create that experience for myself when watching the trailer just reminded me of that and made me more excited to go.
Okay, well, I'm going to go next because that you bring up a good point. Because the only way I've watched this trailer is like on my iPad. Um, so I'm going to need to put it on my big screen TV and crank the sound because I'm not saying that I am more worried. I'd say I'm like I was. It didn't move the needles for me, and it's because I know exactly why it is, and it looked like an episode of The Mandalorian. It looked like an episode of The Mandalorian, and either that means that The Mandalorian looks really dang good, which it does, or it's it didn't feel like it was anything different than what I've been watching on TV. That was my thing. So anyway, go ahead, Fredo.
No, I was going to ask, did it give you the same vibes as when you saw the trailer for, and I don't know if you ever did watch this, the X-Files movie when it came out in 97, 98?
No, and I've never even watched an episode of the X Files, so that
Okay, so you
doesn't.
see, that was my point of comparison. Because for me, I'm with you in that it didn't move my needle. I'm excited for the movie. I'm gonna go see the movie. That's not
Oh, I
a
am too.
no, but my point is, I can kind of see where you're coming from when I compare it to other TV shows that have made the jump to the big screen. It's very easy to go, well, this is just this, but here on a bigger stage, and you go, well, yeah, that's what it is. That there is no getting away from it. The Mandalorian and Grogu is a continuation of the Mandalorian TV show, but now it's on the big screen. And if the rumors are correct, maybe we're getting a Mandalorian season 4, which will be back on the smaller screen. But is that what's really holding me back? No, no, it isn't. I'm excited for it. I love the idea of giving us something with the sense of humor and a sense of adventure. Again, going back to the discussion we're having about Andor, this doesn't need to be serious, dark, brooding. This could be lighthearted. This could be fun. This could be exciting. This could be a roller coaster. We can be fine with that because, again, we know these characters. In some instances, the hard work of getting to know Din and Grogu has been done. So you can almost hit the ground running if you want to. This is not about getting to know these characters. This is about go seeing what the next step in their adventure is, and I'm here for it.
Um, so I'm gonna play just a little quick game with you guys, based on the trailer. All right, because one of the things we saw Pedro Pascal, we saw his face a couple times. So we're gonna play a game. Highly likely, likely, or not likely. We see Pedro Pascal's face for at least half of this movie. Half of the scenes that the Mandalorian is in, highly likely, likely, or not likely that we see his face for half of them.
Not likely.
Not likely.
So do you think? I'm kind of with you. My cynicism was that I think we saw the scenes that we're going to see Pedro Pascal's face in, and I think I think that would be kind of a mistake. That, I mean, you got one of the hottest actors, you know, in both interpretations of that phrase. You know, that I wish I was listening to another podcast. I was like, I wish they would have. Well, maybe, and of course, I don't know. Maybe they will. That now that all the Mandalorians have got together, and it's like, you know, you don't have to keep your helmet on the whole time. Maybe he will take it off more, but so not likely. Okay.
Next,
Next,
it doesn't feel like this character. That's the thing. It's like we've established the hard work that he had to go do in season 3 in order to or be able to put his helmet back on and be considered a Mandalorian. So he's not necessarily going to put away with that because now we're cool. You know.
so
Uh,
next one, because we saw Grogu do some Force stuff. Okay, and there was something interesting. The reason why I'm bringing this up. They announced like all the Mandalorian toys and collectibles and stuff while we were on hiatus. And one of them, I was listening to the Resistance broadcast, and they brought this up. So this is I give credit where credit is due. In there, as part of the toy collectible releases, Yoda's lightsaber, as seen in the Book of Boba Fett. Yoda's lightsaber, as seen in the Book of Boba Fett. Now, remember, in the Book of Boba Fett, Luke, says, hey, here's the Mandalorian chainmail, or here's Yoda's lightsaber. You get to choose, Grogu, which one you want. And Grogu chose the Mandalorian chainmail. Okay, so why would you, market Yoda's lightsaber? You've been able to buy it at Galaxy's Edge for a while. But why would you market it as Book of Boba Fett? So I guess here is my highly likely, likely, or not likely. Grogu uses Yoda's lightsaber in the movie.
Likely. I'll go with likely for that. I mean, we see him at least show use some of his force powers on that little mouse droid, and you know, we see him hopping around a little bit. So the idea of him using a lightsaber, well, it seems kind of crazy that we still consider him. He's over 50 years old, but he's also still a babe, a kid in some instances, and we see him that way. But I don't know about no, Dave. Would you hand your kid a lightsaber and let him in the tour if he has grenades? They were. So,
which kid? Which kid?
okay, fair enough. Good question.
um,
Good point.
I'm gonna go with
Yeah.
I'm gonna go
Some
with
he may, some he may not.
likely. I'm gonna go with likely, but not highly likely. Just because I think story-wise it doesn't make any sense, but they may not be able to resist the temptation of the cool factor. So
All right,
I'm gonna
well,
say likely.
getting to the story, because that was one of my criticisms of this trailer, is it really doesn't. It gives you a little bit, but you still really don't know where the story is going. But we do see that Imperial Shadow Council, which, by the way, snowtroopers are guarding, and that's going to be awesome. I've got snowtrooper armor, so I'm going to finally, be recognized. All right, highly likely, likely, or not likely. Cameo by Grand Admiral Thrawn.
I would say likely. Even if it's just a temper. Well, here's where it gets interesting because this movie's taking place how far removed from call it from the end of Ahsoka season one? It's supposed to be a few months after,
I
correct?
don't know. Do we know that for certain? I don't know.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up. But yeah, I think if he's back in town, I think he'll turn up. Or if nothing else, I could see that Shadow Council discussing his reemergence.
They've already done
I'm
that.
trying.
They already did that they've already talked about that. I mean, that when Grand Admiral Thrawn comes back. So, sorry.
Yeah, highly likely. Highly likely. And I'll even make it 100% guarantee if we include post-credit scenes.
Ooh. I don't think we saw who the big baddie is in this movie. I don't think it's the Hutts, and I don't think it's the guy that's talking, in the Shadow Council that we don't know his name. Um, I I think Thrawn is going to be the big baddie here. All right, last one. Grogu talks.
I would say highly likely with that one. I think if you're given the Baby Yoda lightsaber, Baby Yoda can't just be Goo Goo and Gaga in it anymore. You gotta say, Dad, lightsaber.
I think you just sort of like answered it too. Like if it's gonna be anything, it's gonna be like Dad, right, or Dada, or Papa, or something like that. Um, I'm gonna say unlikely. I think they're just gonna keep that one in their back pocket. They don't want to go there, not yet, anyway.
I think it's highly likely because I think people's patience are wearing thin, and I still think his first words are going to be, "This is the way."
Oh God, I hope not.
I think, and I hope it's in a Cockney accent too. I hope he sounds like Oliver Twist or something.
Please, sir, I want some more.
By the way, the one thing in this trailer that nobody else has mentioned, I have not heard anybody talk about this. There is a line that made my head cock to the side like I just said the word cookie around my three dogs. And that's when Din says, the kid's going to be around for centuries. And I'm not going to be able to protect him for it. He's going to be around for centuries. We are going to learn something about Yoda's species in this movie, because we don't know. Nobody knows that. in the 3 seasons of The Mandalorian yet, do we? I mean, the only person who said anything is Ahsoka, who said, "I've only known one of his kind, and that was Master Yoda." You know, but somewhere along the line, he's going to find out that this kid's going to live to be 900 years old. So what's going on? What's going on there? That was very interesting to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm grasping at something here, but did either one of you guys pick up on that?
It's it. First of all, it's an interesting sentence regarding just the way that Din is acknowledging what I think our parents have to at some point acknowledge. They're not going to be around to see their child at some point, that they have to prepare them for a world beyond them. And so that's important, particularly when it comes to the dynamics of Grogu and what we know of his species, which is very little for this moment, but we know they're long lived. And Yoda lived to 900. Now, we don't know if that's necessarily the norm or if he was extremely long, he went above and beyond because of his connection to the Force. But even if you say that, on average, their species lives is somewhere in the 300 to 400 years, they ain't got that in him. Sorry, he's not going to be around to see him when he's in his early to mid 200s, kind of a thing. So I do think you're right. We're going to get some more revelations about the species because there's only so much you can kind of, wink, wink, nudge, nudge at the audience about Yoda and Grogu species and Yaddles as well, without actually starting to put some cards on the table and kind of feeding people information. Because again, we've now had this character in our lives for going on 6 years, going on 7 years, 6.5. So you need to be able to start saying more than just, oh, he's a foundling and he's this and he's that and he's adorable. Like,
Yeah, but again,
come on.
my point is that in those 6 years, we have not, no
Mhm.
crumb has dropped that
Nope.
this species lives to be that long. He picks up on that information somewhere. Dave, you look like you're.
It begs the question where he would get the information, and that begs the question: are you going to get a Jedi cameo in this movie? Like, highly likely, or
Well, that's
unlikely.
why that was one I considered putting in there as like, likely, highly likely, or not likely that we get Luke Skywalker again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because now
Or
if they
again, it
have some
didn't
more allowance
necessarily
to,
have to be him.
yeah.
I was thinking too, like surrogate could be Ezra.
Well,
Well, yeah,
Ahsoka as well.
because I was going to ask about that. Do you, in your likely not likely theme, do you think we'll see Luke in this? Because I mean, on the one hand, everybody kind of was amazed at the end of season 2, and then we got him in Book of Boba Fett for a hot minute. But those are effects were for TV. Are we ready to see? I mean, we did get one moment of Princess Leia at the end of Rogue One, and Tarkin was around, and people complained about some of those effects. Maybe a decade later they've improved, but how comfortable are people going to be seeing CGI
So
Luke
it's
Skywalker?
so I'm torn on a couple of things here. Is that first of all, I don't think it's going to be Ezra, Dave, because I think they're saving the Rebels um, reunion for Ahsoka, and we've got Zeb in this. So Fredo, that gets my other part is that they're spending probably a good chunk of their allowance on making Zeb work, and then so to make Luke Skywalker better than what they had. I don't know. It, maybe they got the budget to do it, but I would think it'd be more likely that we'd get another scene with Luke, and maybe that's how we get the lightsaber. You know, maybe that's so I don't know. But my frustration is I hope we do get another to maybe now bring it to kind of closing thoughts. I hope we get another trailer that now tells me a little bit more of what the actual story is. Okay, I get it that you're hunting down bad guys, but that's what a bounty hunter does. So I just hope we get something that's a little bit more of what the story is.
We could see it. I mean, there's a new Pixar movie coming out in early March, Hoppers. We could see it attached to that. We could see it attached to. I'm trying to think of what other movies are coming out early next. This spring. I could see it coming up. They could put something out ahead of in early April, ahead of the movie's release. Just tell people it's coming in 6 to 8 weeks. Because that's the other thing. It's like, yes, this trailer will play and I'm sure they'll see it in theaters, whatever. But they're gonna ramp up all this. You're gonna get the toy lines, you're gonna get the toy ads, you're gonna get the soundtrack, you're gonna get all the ancillary Star Wars merchandising machine getting propped up, in order to promote the movie. So I'm sure we'll get at least one more trailer.
Before I toss it to Dave for to bring us home, it is odd that, I mean, you mentioned on the parade route, Fredo, we've gotten 2 trailers for Supergirl, and that comes out in June.
Mhm.
And I don't even, like I said, I don't even think they were planning on releasing this trailer now. I think I think they had to put something together. But Dave, final thoughts?
I don't think this trailer needed to blow us away either. I kind of maybe it was certainly better than the TV spot, and it gave us a lot more, and um, it it sufficiently raised my hype level eventually. Um, but I just think people's expectations. I don't know what they're going to be. I don't know what the fans are like hoping for out of this or what they're expecting it to be because think I don't think this project is meant to make $1 billion at the box office. And I think that they have a very when you were talking about budget earlier, this is where my mind kind of wandered a little bit, which is this like I don't think the budget's going to be very high, and I think that we're going to find that out. I think we're going to find out that there weren't expensive reshoots, and I think we're going to find out that hey, if they can make 500 million or so on this, they're going to feel really good about things. And so it's not going to be I just don't think it's going to have the fanfare, the marketing push, the fan fever, the excitement, all of those things. It's going to be tempered some. And I think like people need to sort of wrap their arms around that if they're expecting something different than that. And the trailer kind of reinforced that point maybe a little bit for me. And then us just sitting here talking about it. Yeah, this budget is going to be reasonable.
And if everybody could do everybody a favor and just maybe your expectations going into this movie is just to have a good time. Because that was the thing, is that with that Super Bowl ad, is that people were expecting a trailer because something leaked in Deadline or something that there was going to be something about Mandalorian and Grogu. And so everyone, oh, it's a trailer. We're going to get a trailer. And then they got Tauntauns pulling a sled and they got all mad. And it's like, nobody promised you a trailer. Nobody is promising you anything. I think the only thing they're promising us, or should be promising us, is a fun time and a fun movie, and whatever your definition of fun. So, I think that's the expectation to have, and that would help us all a lot. But yeah, so that's my 2 cents. So
I will say just kind of, it's funny we're talking about bringing no expectations. We were talking about that earlier about going to parades and Mardi Gras, bringing no expectations, just looking for fun. That's really the mindset you have to go with these movies. This is a fun adventure. Go in there hoping for fun, and you'll get it. I was just thinking about the release schedule. There is no Marvel movie coming out before it. Outside of this Pixar movie coming out in March, Disney has cleared the runway for this movie. It is all clear. Everybody's out of the way, which tells you they're hoping for a big hit. It tells you they don't want anything stealing its thunder. They want The Mandalorian and Grogu to be the movie of the summer, even if they have Moana and Toy Story 5 and
oh, they better
Brand New Day coming out. So, but they want this to hit
they
on
need to
Memorial
start
Day
getting
weekend.
some ads on TV then.
Mhm.
So
Well, we're ending February. We still got, again, this is a ramp up process. You also don't want people to get burnt out. So it's a fine balance. But
yeah.
and this is where the lessons from Solo have learned. you have to remind people this is coming, because otherwise it's going to be very easy to put it out of their mind.
Also have to remember that I am not a marketing person. So,
Mm.
and that my degree is nowhere near that, nor is my job. So anyway, well, let us know what you thought of the trailer if you see us on the street corner or wherever we might be, or online or something like that. But until then, we will say who dat.
Who dat?
Everybody have a fantastic week.
McClunky.